Good evening and welcome to While You Drift, where we soothe your night with echoes from around the world while you drift slowly and effortlessly away to sleep. Tonight, let's settle in with a story that began thousands of years ago, not with a loud bang, but with a quiet moment of connection. A story of how a wild creature, the wolf, took that first tentative step towards a human campfire, and how humanity, in turn, reached out a hand. This was the dawn of a partnership unlike any other in the history of our planet, the beginning of the profound and enduring bond between humans and dogs. It's a quiet evening here, and as I look over, my own dogs are curled up asleep. Their soft, rhythmic breathing is like a gentle clock, slowing down time in the stillness of the room. It's such a comforting sound, one of pure peace and trust. And it's that feeling of quiet comfort, of steadfast companionship, that we'll be exploring tonight. So find a comfortable position. Let your body feel heavy and supported. And let's drift back in time together to explore only the most heartwarming history of our most faithful friend. Let's begin with some gentle relaxation. Close your eyes and breathe in, slowly and deeply. At your own pace, breathe out as you feel your shoulders relax, letting go of the day. As you keep letting your breath softly in and out, you're becoming more and more relaxed. Imagine the gentle rise and fall of a sleeping dog's chest, that steady, rhythmic, peaceful presence. Focus on the soft darkness behind your eyelids. Allow your mind to settle and become a sponge, ready to soak in this heartwarming history while you drift slowly and steadily away. Have you ever felt that little nudge of a wet nose against your hand, or looked into a pair of trusting eyes and felt an unspoken understanding? That feeling, that deep connection, is as old as humanity itself. Our relationship with dogs is unique. It's a story that began not with a command, but with a choice made by two very different species to trust one another in a wild and challenging world. So, how did this happen? How did a wild wolf become our most loyal friend? Their journey to our sides and into our hearts is a beautiful story, full of mystery and love. While we drift through the ages, I invite you to simply listen. Let the stories of ancient bonds, loyal companions, and quiet devotion calm your mind and nurture your soul. There's no need to remember every detail. Just allow the story to unfold, like a familiar path leading you home. Our journey begins in the deep past, in a world of ice and stone, where the first chapter of our shared story unfolds. Imagine a world thousands of years ago, a world without cities, without farms, without anything we might recognize as modern life. Our ancestors were hunter-gatherers, living in small nomadic groups, following the great herds across vast open landscapes. It was here, in this ancient world, that the story of our bond began. In the deep, quiet past, somewhere in a vast expanse of time between 15,000 and 40,000 years ago, a subtle shift began. A line of ancient wolves began a journey that would lead them to become the dogs we know and love today. How this incredible alliance came to be is a gentle mystery with two competing theories. One idea is that the wolves, in a way, domesticated themselves. Drawn by the promise of food scraps left behind by human hunting parties, the bolder and less fearful wolves began to linger around human encampments. Over countless generations, humans would have tolerated these less aggressive wolves, giving them a better chance to survive and pass on their friendlier traits. It was a relationship born of convenience, a slow, quiet dance of growing trust. But there is a second, more heartwarming theory, one that I personally find very touching. It's known as the cross-species adoption hypothesis. This idea suggests that our Paleolithic ancestors were naturally inclined to adopt and raise orphaned wolf pups. This theory proposes that the bond was initiated not by accident, but by an active, emotional choice, a deep-seated desire to nurture. Try to imagine that moment. Our ancient ancestor returning to camp, carrying a tiny, whimpering wolf cub with eyes barely open. A single act of compassion that would change the world forever. While we may never know the exact spark, the archaeological record leaves little doubt that this ancient relationship blossomed into one of genuine, profound affection. The most powerful evidence comes not from words, but from the earth itself, in the way our ancestors laid their canine companions to rest. The first undisputed proof of this deep bond is the Bonn Oberkassel dog, discovered in Germany and dated to an incredible 14,200 years ago. Here, a young dog, barely more than a puppy, was carefully buried alongside a man and a woman. But this was not just any burial. A detailed analysis of the puppy's teeth revealed they had suffered from a severe case of canine distemper. For this young animal to have survived for weeks with such a grave illness, they would have required intensive, dedicated human care. Someone had to keep the puppy warm, clean them, and bring them food and water when they were too weak to move. This was not a random animal found close to a human encampment. This was a cherished, cared-for companion who was buried with the same reverence as the humans laying beside them. And this is not an isolated case. Finds from a site in the Czech Republic hint at this ancient reverence. At Předmostí, in a discovery dated to as many as 32,000 years ago, a canid was laid to rest with a large mammoth bone carefully placed in their mouth. A final, loving offering for the dog's journey into the afterlife. And perhaps most touchingly of all, at a 12,000-year-old settlement in the Middle East, in a site that is now called Ain Malaha, archaeologists found one of the buried individuals with their hand resting gently on the body of a small puppy. A timeless, silent gesture of love frozen in the earth for millennia. Across a vast ocean, another story of companionship was unfolding. Dogs were the only animal to accompany the first humans who migrated from Asia into the Americas more than 10,000 years ago. At one site in Illinois, archaeologists discovered the earliest known individual dog burials in the world. These were not abandoned dogs discarded after humans had their use with them. They were laid to rest with care, a sign that they were grieved as beloved companions. Further north, in Alaska, the bones of canines around human encampments from 12,000 years ago tell another story of closeness. Chemical analysis of their remains show that they ate a diet rich in salmon. Since wild canines in that area were not typically eating salmon, this is said to prove that humans were sharing their food and caring for their canine partners in the harsh Ice Age environment. These discoveries aren't mere fossils, they are snapshots of prehistoric tenderness, proving that the human-dog bond is a story of love that is tens of thousands of years old. It was a partnership forged between two highly intelligent social species who were both cooperative pack hunters. For humans, these dogs were invaluable allies. With their sharp senses, they acted as living alarm systems, warning of approaching predators or rival tribes. As keen hunters, they helped make the hunt more successful and life a little less precarious. In return, humans offered these dogs protection, a stable source of food, and a sense of belonging within a social group. It was a perfect symbiosis, a quiet agreement that helped both species thrive. As we leave these ancient whispers behind, take a moment to appreciate the depth of this first connection, a bond formed from a shared journey through a wild world, founded on companionship and mutual survival. As human societies transitioned from nomadic bands to settled civilizations, the dog's place at our side became even more profound and deeply woven into the cultural, spiritual, and emotional fabric of life. Across the ancient world, from the fertile banks of the Nile to the sun-drenched hills of Rome, dogs were consistently being recognized as more than just animals. Let's continue our journey now in ancient Egypt, a civilization famous for its monuments, but equally remarkable in its reverence for dogs. Here, the dog was an essential partner in the hunt and a vigilant guardian of the home. But their role also extended far into the realm of the spiritual. Egyptian art, from pottery to grand tomb paintings, is filled with depictions of various dogs, faithfully accompanying their humans in life. When they passed away, they were often carefully mummified and buried within their families' burial sites, a clear sign that the Egyptians believed their bond would continue into the next life. This was a deeply personal relationship. Egyptians gave their dogs affectionate and descriptive names, from Nefer, meaning beautiful, to task-oriented names like Meniupu, meaning he is a shepherd. The depth of this bond is most powerfully illustrated by the story of Abutiyu, a royal guard dog in the Old Kingdom. Upon the dog's death, the pharaoh was so moved that he ordered a full ceremonial burial. Abutiyu was provided with a coffin from the royal treasury, wrapped in fine linens and perfumed with incense so that he might be honored before the great god Anubis. While no deity took the form of a domestic dog, the canine form itself was sacred. Jackal-headed gods, like Anubis, the god of embalming and guardian of the necropolis, presided over the journey to the afterlife, forever linking canines with the sacred passage between worlds. Let's drift across a vast continent now to West Africa, to the Igbo people of Nigeria, who share a beautiful and poignant myth that seeks to answer a quiet question. Why is a dog's love so absolute? The story begins at the dawn of time, when a choice had to be made for humankind, a life that was fleeting, or one that would last forever. The proud, swift dog, Ankita, was sent to the Creator with a message of eternal life. But on his journey, he became lost in the simple joys of the world, a scent on the wind, a bone buried in the earth. While the dog was distracted, the slow and steady tortoise delivered a different message, and the world's path was set. When Nkita finally arrived and learned of his mistake, a deep and profound regret filled his heart. He had failed to give humanity immortality, so he returned to them and made a silent, solemn vow. He would instead give them his everything. He would stay by their side, a loyal guardian and a constant comfort, to protect the precious, fleeting lives he had unintentionally helped to shape. This powerful story is more than just a folktale. It is a reflection of the dog's deep spiritual importance in Igbo culture, where they are seen as loyal protectors and guardians that stands on the threshold between the physical and spiritual worlds. The myth of Nkita's vow gives a sacred weight to the quiet, watchful presence of a dog. It suggests their unwavering devotion is not a simple habit, but an ancient promise, still being kept day after day. Now, let's journey along the Mediterranean to ancient Greece, where dogs were celebrated for their courage, skill, and, above all, their unwavering loyalty. The Greek appreciation for dogs is immortalized in their mythology and literature. The most famous dog in Greek myth is Cerberus, the three-headed hound who guarded the gates of the underworld, a fearsome protector ensuring the boundary between the living and the dead was maintained. Yet the most touching story, the one that still resonates in our hearts today, is that of Argos, from Homer's Odyssey. After 20 long years away at war and on his arduous journey home, Odysseus returns to Ithaca disguised as a beggar. He is unrecognized by his family, his servants, even his own wife, but not by his devoted dog, Argos. Now old and neglected, he lies on a dung heap, too weak to move. Upon hearing his person's voice one last time, he wags his tail, drops his ears, and then, with his long, faithful watch finally over, he peacefully passes away. It is a story that has been told for 3,000 years, and it remains a testament to a dog's unwavering devotion. Now, let's drift off to nearby Rome, where the practical and affectionate roles of dogs were equally prominent. They were integral to daily life, serving as hunting companions, war dogs that marched with the legions, and vigilant guardians of the home. The famous cave canem mosaics found at the entrances of homes in Pompeii and meaning "beware of the dog" are a vivid reminder of their role as protectors. But the Roman relationship with dogs was also one of deep affection. Writers like Pliny the Elder praised their loyalty, and archaeological discoveries of dog graves with beautifully carved epitaphs reveal a bond that went far beyond mere utility. One such inscription reads, "I am in tears while carrying you to your last resting place, as much as I rejoiced when bringing you home with my own hands 15 years ago." Another simply says, "You who pass on this path, if you happen to see this monument, laugh not, I pray, though it is a dog's grave. Tears fell for me, and the dust was heaped above me by a master's hand." While large dogs guarded the home, smaller dogs were pampered lapdogs, cherished by wealthy Roman women as companions and status symbols, mourned with a grief reserved only for a family member. Floating on now to the east, to ancient China, where the bond with dogs was just as strong and complex. Much like in the West, they were practical partners, serving as guardians and assisting in hunts. But their societal role went much deeper. The dog was seen as a liminal being, a being that could bridge the span between the world of the living and the world of the spirits. This spiritual significance is beautifully captured in their mythology and traditions. The dog is honored as the 11th animal in the 12-year cycle of the Chinese Zodiac, and people born in the year of the dog are said to possess qualities of loyalty, honesty, and kindness. In some southern ethnic groups like the Yao and Shi people, a divine dog named Panhu is revered as a sacred ancestor. Legend tells that Panhu won the hand of an emperor's daughter by bravely defeating an enemy general, and their children became the founders of a new people. This reverence is also seen in ancient burial practices where beautifully crafted ceramic dogs, known as mingqi, were placed in tombs, intended to serve and comfort the soul for eternity. Now let's journey across a vast ocean to the great civilizations of Mesoamerica. The Maya and the Aztec both believed that a dog was essential to guide the soul of the deceased through the treacherous underworld. The Aztecs, in particular, associated the dog with the god Xolotl, a powerful deity of lightning and death, who was often imagined as an enormous canine. This divine dog was a companion to the sun, following its path through both the sky and the underworld. It was believed that when a person died, one of their own dogs would greet their soul, help it cross a perilous river, and then navigate the dangerous journey to the afterlife. One remarkable type of hairless dog was considered especially sacred and held a special place in their society. With their naturally warm bodies, these dogs were used as living heating pads to soothe aches and pains. In cleansing rituals, it was believed they could even draw sickness away from a patient, absorbing the malady into themselves. As the ancient world gave way to the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, the dog's place in society continued to evolve. During this long period, their identity increasingly became defined not just by what they did, but by their relationship to their humans. In the highly stratified society of medieval Europe, certain types of dogs became a clear and visible marker of nobility. Hunting was the exclusive sport of aristocrats, and the powerful hounds required for the chase were considered a luxury only the elite could afford. Some in particular were seen as a reflection of their humans' princely nature, and they became a display of wealth and taste. This connection was so strong that dogs began to appear in heraldry, featured on coats of arms to symbolize the noble virtues of courage, vigilance, and of course, loyalty. While most dogs in the Middle Ages were still working animals, a significant shift was occurring within the walls of castles and monasteries. Dogs began moving from the outdoor kennel to the indoor fireside, becoming cherished companions. This was especially true for noble women and members of the clergy, whose more sedentary lifestyles were well suited to canine companionship. These small, fashionable lapdogs were held in great affection by the ladies of the court and were utterly pampered, sleeping on embroidered cushions, wearing velvet collars adorned with tiny bells, and fed choice foods. a practice that sometimes drew the anger of moralists who saw it as a frivolous waste. The emotional bond was profound. When these dogs died, they were mourned as deeply as any family member and sometimes commemorated with their own tomb effigies. A small stone dog resting forever at the feet of their lady. Nowhere is this shift in the dog's role more evident than in the art of the Renaissance. Artists began to use the dog as a powerful and universally understood symbol, a visual shorthand for faithfulness and devotion. In portraits of married couples, a small dog placed at the woman's feet or in her lap was an unambiguous representation of marital fidelity. Two iconic paintings perfectly illustrate this symbolism. In Jan van Eyck's 1434 masterpiece, the Arnolfini portrait, a small, shaggy, griffin-type dog stands proudly at the feet of the couple. Art historians widely interpret the dog's presence as a symbol of the loyalty and faithfulness required in a marriage. Similarly, in Titian's Venus of Urbino, a small dog sleeps peacefully at the foot of the reclining Venus's bed. Its quiet, slumbering presence introduces a note of domesticity and symbolizes fidelity in love. The dog's loyalty was also harnessed as a metaphor for religious devotion. In paintings of biblical scenes, a dog gazing intently toward Jesus or a saint represented the unwavering devotion of the faithful. This evolution was a critical turning point. The dog's identity within society was moving away from being defined by function. It became increasingly popular to tie them to relationships, laying the foundation for our modern understanding of animal companionship. Moving on now to the Victorian era, particularly in Britain, when arguably the idea of the modern family dog truly began to take shape. As the burgeoning middle class focused on creating the home as a private sanctuary, the dog's role kept evolving. They took their place by the fireside, becoming a cherished member of the domestic circle. This trend was powerfully influenced by Queen Victoria, a devoted and lifelong dog lover. Her affection for her many canine companions, from her childhood friend Dash to her beloved Turi, who was by her side on her deathbed, made living with dogs not just acceptable, but fashionable and respectable. During this period, loving and caring for animals was imbued with a new moral significance. It was seen as a way to build character in children, teaching them lessons in responsibility, empathy, and care. With their perceived virtues of loyalty, courage, and unwavering devotion, dogs embodied the very values the Victorians held most dear. This shift cemented the dog's status as an integral part of the family, a companion to be loved, cared for, and mourned. As the 19th century gave way to the 20th, dogs began to show us new depths of their hearts. With the advent of photography and more widespread personal records, the quiet, individual stories of devotion, once only hinted at in ancient graves, could now be shared with the entire world. This was the era where the dog's role as a soulmate, a healer, and an unwavering friend came into its clearest focus. Perhaps no story captures the soul of canine loyalty more profoundly than that of Hachikō. In the bustling Tokyo of the 1920s, a professor named Hidesaburo Ueno shared an inseparable bond with his dog. Every morning, the two would walk together to Shibuya station, where the professor would board a train for work. And every evening, like clockwork, the dog would return to the station, appearing precisely as his person's train was due, ready to greet him for the walk home. This daily ritual was a small, beautiful testament to their connection. But one day in 1925, the professor suffered a sudden hemorrhage at work and never returned. Hachikō, of course, did not know this. That evening, he arrived at the station as usual, his eyes scanning the crowds for that one familiar face. But his human never appeared. For the next 9 years, 9 months, and 15 days, Hachikō kept his vigil. Every single day, through sun and rain and snow, he would appear at the station at the exact time the train was scheduled to arrive. He became a silent sentinel of love, a promise kept to a memory. His story eventually captured the heart of the nation, and he became a symbol of the unbreakable bond we share with our dogs. Today, a bronze statue stands in that very spot, which has now become a common meeting point for friends and lovers. It acts as a permanent monument to the dog who waited. Across the world, set in the misty cobblestone streets of Edinburgh, another story took root that would become one of Scotland's most enduring legends of canine loyalty, the tale of Greyfriars Bobby. It is said that in the mid-19th century, a night watchman for the city police named John Gray had a small, shaggy terrier named Bobbie as his constant patrol partner. They were inseparable, walking the quiet, gas-lit streets together through the cold Scottish nights. In 1858, John Gray passed away from tuberculosis and was buried in Greyfriars Kirkyard, a historic cemetery in the heart of the city. The day after the funeral, the groundskeeper found Bobbie lying on his person's fresh grave, refusing to leave. He was shooed away as dogs were not permitted, but the next morning he was back, and the morning after that, and for every day that followed. For 14 years, Bobbie made the graveyard his home, guarding the resting place of the human he loved. The local people were so moved by his devotion that they took care of him, with a nearby coffee house providing his daily meal. When a new law required all dogs to be licensed, the Lord Provost of Edinburgh himself paid for Bobbie's license and gave him a collar, declaring him the city's responsibility. When Bobbie finally passed away in 1872, he was buried just inside the gates of the kirkyard, as close to his human as the law would allow. A statue was erected in his honor, a permanent tribute to the little dog whose love proved stronger than death itself. Now let's turn our attention to a dog's love which was immortalized, not by a grand vigil, but by a single quiet moment captured in art. In the late 1800s in Bristol, England, a small terrier mix named Nipper lived with Mark Barraud, a theatre scenery designer. When Mark passed away, Nipper went to live with his brother Francis, who was a painter. Francis noticed that whenever he played recordings of his late brother's voice on an early cylinder phonograph, Nipper would run over to the machine's horn, cocking his head with a puzzled and curious expression, as if trying to understand where the familiar voice was coming from. 3 years after Nipper himself had passed away, Francis, remembering this touching scene, decided to paint it. He called the painting his master's voice. You may very well have seen this painting before, as he eventually sold it to the gramophone company, which adapted the image for use as its logo. Soon, the image of the curious little dog listening for his beloved, absent human became one of the most recognized trademarks in the world, appearing on millions of records for HMV and RCA Victor. It's a quiet, intimate story of love and confusion, a single moment of devotion that has been silently echoing across the world for more than a century. Not all stories of loyalty are about loss. There are also the incredible, unexplainable journeys. In the summer of 1923, the Brazier family from Silverton, Oregon, were on a road trip in Indiana when their beloved dog, Bobbie, was separated from them. Heartbroken, the family searched everywhere, but Bobbie was gone. They had no choice but to continue their trip and return home to Oregon, believing they would never see him again. 6 months later, in February 1924, a thin, scruffy and travel-worn dog appeared on their doorstep in Silverton. It was Bobbie. His paws were worn down to the bone, but he had made it home. The story was so incredible that it became a national sensation. The Oregon Humane Society investigated, piecing together accounts from people across the country who had sheltered and fed a friendly lost dog, matching Bobbie's description. They confirmed that he had walked an astonishing 2,800 miles, crossing the plains, deserts, and mountains of the American West in the dead of winter to find his family. Bobbie became a celebrity, playing himself in a silent film and receiving medals and keys to cities. His story is not one of waiting, but of an active, relentless love that refused to be broken by distance. We've traveled through millennia, from the flickering firelight of an Ice Age camp to the bustling platform of a modern train station. The human journey with dogs is a testament to our shared history, our ingenuity, and our deep capacity for connection. We've seen how ancient civilizations revered them, how medieval nobles prized them, and how Victorian families welcomed them into their homes. We've seen them as hunters, guardians, and status symbols, but their most ancient and enduring role is simply that of companion, a quiet, steady presence in a busy world. In recent decades, modern science has begun to explain what human hearts have known all along. The calming effect we feel when being with a dog is not just a feeling. It is a measurable physiological event. Studies show that these interactions can lower our blood pressure and reduce our levels of the stress hormone cortisol. Even more profoundly, research has shown that when humans and dogs gaze into each other's eyes, both of their brains release oxytocin. Often called the love hormone or bonding hormone, oxytocin is the same neurochemical that strengthens the bond between a mother and her child. This shared chemical language helps explain the depth of the connection we feel. Psychologists now describe the human-canine relationship as a bidirectional attachment, one where we seek each other out for comfort and security. While you drift off, consider these gentle reminders from our journey. This ancient, heart-warming connection, woven so long ago in the ice and snow, continues to warm our lives today, offering companionship, comfort, and unconditional love. It is a gentle echo of that first meeting by the fire, there to walk beside us as we pass through our days, and to watch over us with soft breath and a loyal heart as we drift into our dreams. Our shared story lives on, not in grand histories, but in the small, quiet moments, in the happy welcome at the door, the gentle weight on your feet as you sleep. While you drift away tonight, hold on to that simple, heartwarming truth, that the greatest love is often the one that asks for nothing but our presence. May your dreams be gentle, your rest be peaceful, and your spirit feel cherished. Good night.